John, how is it going today, my friend?
Going very well. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We got a brand new telephone, so you have to excuse us.
No problem.
Did you watch the ESPYs last night?
I did not. I did not get a chance to see them.
Is it because you did not want to watch them or you were preoccupied?
I was just busy.
Okay.
John's a smart man. He's got other things going on in his life than to watch the ESPYs.
He does. He does have some other things going on. And one of those is reporting for the Broncos from MileHighReport.com. John, let's go ahead and get right into it. Obviously, Demaryius Thomas and the Broncos got to get a new contract done. Is that contract for the Broncos for Demaryius Thomas, is it a fair deal for both parties?
I think it is a fair deal for both parties. When you look at it from the Broncos' perspective, they didn't have to completely break the bank. They didn't give him Calvin Johnson money. But then also when you look from Thomas's perspective, he's now one of the higher-paid receivers in the NFL. So I think both sides are happy about what they were able to get done.
Des Bryant obviously also got a similar deal to Demaryius Thomas. Do you think both the teams are happy with their deals that they got? And which do you think is better for the contract-wise? Obviously, they're both the same contract, but for the players that they are, who do you think got the better deal?
Well, yeah, I think both teams are happy about the deals they were able to get done. I think the contract terms are obviously very similar, about the same. They're same year, same total. Just the guaranteed money is a little different. But as far as better receiver, tough to say that. I'll say from a fantasy football owner perspective, if I had a chance to pick Thomas or Bryant, I'd probably go with Bryant because of his production. But if I was an NFL owner, if you look at Bryant's had some problems off the field, Thomas hasn't. So I may, if I was in an NFL team, I may take Thomas over Bryant. But it's really a toss-up. It's up for debate who is the better player.
Well, the narrative with Demaryius Thomas and with Peyton Manning, with Peyton Manning wide receivers, is that with number 18 throwing them the ball, many people think that the wide receivers with Peyton are kind of the product of Peyton Manning. Do you think that's the case with Demaryius Thomas, or do you think, because we did see a little bit of him with Tebow, do you think that he is his own player, he can stand on his own, it's not just Peyton Manning?
I think he obviously has benefited from Peyton. Of course he has. That's probably given him a little nicer numbers than he would have. But, yeah, like you said, he played with Tebow, and he had 17 yards per catch with Tebow. When you put up those kind of numbers, no offense to Tebow, he's a great guy, but when you put up those kind of numbers with him passing you the ball, yeah, you're obviously a good receiver, and they knew that from the time they drafted him. He's a big-time talent. I think he deserves this contract for even after Manning's gone. I think he's going to be a playmaker for them.
John, Stephen Priest here. We all know that Von Miller is coming up next year. Do you think it was smart of the Broncos to obviously get this one done and free up the franchise tag? But do you think that maybe they could have gone another route and let DT play on that franchise this year and potentially work out a deal with Von? Would that may have been a better route to go? And is it kind of a lock now that we see Von get a franchise tag next year with how things worked out?
I think they did a good job doing what they're doing, because now that they have Thomas locked up, that's one less thing they have to worry about. And you mentioned the franchise tag. Now, next year, like you said, they'll have the freedom to tag Miller if they want to do that with him. And I think it all depends on the year Miller has. If he has a monster year, they'll probably want to lock him up to a multi-year deal. But if he's not quite as productive as they like him to be, maybe they'll tag him for a year. And now that Thomas is locked up, they'll be able to do that because they're not going to be worrying about tagging Thomas again or working out a deal with both at the same time. So I think locking up Thomas was a good move because now they can focus on the other guys like Miller.
Broncos writer from MileHighReport.com, Jon Heath, joining the KMet Sports Show right now. And John, if not the franchise tag with the Chiefs, Justin Houston just got a 6-year, $101 million deal with the Chiefs. Does this lock in Miller to want more than even that, and maybe even more so the franchise tag is what the Broncos are going to have to do next season?
Yeah, I think Miller's definitely right up there with Houston. Obviously, Houston kind of has set the market now for elite linebackers, elite pass rushers, and I think Miller, like I said, depending on his production, if he has a 20-sack year and stays out of trouble off the field, I think he'll definitely be in the running to get a deal similar to, if not more than Houston next year. It kind of hinges. That's a long time away. It's hard to say if they're going to want to tag him or get him done. But, yeah, if he can stay out of trouble and be productive, he's definitely looking at a Houston-like deal coming up.
John, Colton Denning here. I want to take a look back. We're talking about Von Miller going forward, but last offseason, I believe, Chris Harris re-upped with the Broncos, 5 years, $42 million. with signing Demaryius Thomas and now Chris Harris. What does that contract, Chris Harris's, mean for them going forward? How much space, if any, does that give them to make this easier to bring back both of these guys? Because Chris Harris at the time, I think everybody looked at that deal and thought, wow, that's a pretty friendly deal compared to Richard Sherman, even Aqib Talib, Byron Maxwell, Joe Hayden, Patrick Peterson, Revis, you name them. That's a great deal for Harris, and I think it gives them a lot of flexibility going forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they did. They locked him up, I believe it was this past December. And, yeah, it was a very, very team-friendly deal. It gives them room. Like you said, he's not getting paid as much as those other big-time cornerbacks, even though he is a big-time cornerback. And, yeah, it was a very good deal for the team, and it does give them freedom to work with their cap down the road. And Denver this offseason, they let guys like they didn't re-sign Julius Thomas, Raheem Moore, Orlando Franklin, guys like that. And by letting guys go, letting guys like that go, they're able to sign Demaryius Thomas like they have. Next year, they'll be able to get something done with Von Miller. And this happened after they got the Chris Harris deal, but they're able to get guys like Harris, Miller, and Thomas locked up by letting those kind of players walk this offseason.
Broncos writer from MileHighReport.com, Jon Heath, joining the KMet Sports right now. And John, kind of looking ahead for the Denver Broncos, obviously giving the big money to DT, likely going to give it to Von Miller, franchise tag or not, and then obviously the long-term contract. These big moves, investing this big money, is John Elway kind of hamstringing the Broncos for when the Osweiler era is going to begin?
I don't think so, because when you look at what a young and experienced quarterback wants or needs around him, I would say you want a good defense, a good running game, and the quarterback would love to have a great receiver to throw the ball to. And now, if they get Von Miller locked up, they're going to have him and Shane Ray, maybe Demarcus Ware, depending on how long he plays. They got some good pass rushers. They obviously have a great secondary with 3 Pro Bowlers back there, so the defense should be pretty good. The run game with Kubiak, as you noted, should be pretty good, and now they have Thomas locked up, so Osweiler's going to have an elite receiver to throw the ball to. So I don't think it's putting them in a bad situation. I think Osweiler's in a pretty good situation going forward.
And let's keep it with the Osweiler era talk, John. So, I mean, as you just said, signing DT, obviously that gives Brock an elite receiver to throw the ball to for years to come, if he is indeed the guy that moves forward with this team. But overall, do you think this is a smart move for the Broncos, now with Kubiak in, with a more play-action style offense, more run-oriented? Is it smart for the Broncos to keep a guy like DT, or would it have been better to get other areas fixed, or maybe receivers that maybe fit more of that offense mold?
I think that they could have gone different routes, but if you look at Gary Kubiak when he was in Houston, yes, they were a run-oriented team. They had a great run game, but they also had Andre Johnson, who was one of the better receivers in the NFL, and now they're going to have Demaryius Thomas. Demaryius Thomas is, no matter what kind of offense you run, throwing the ball to Demaryius Thomas, he's the kind of guy that can take a 5-yard pass or a screen pass 70 yards for a score. So they're going to be doing some play action and stuff, and I think Thomas will fit that. He fits the offense well, and I think Osweiler fits that offense very well, and they've got some good young backs with C.J. Anderson, Monte Ball, Ronnie Hillman. There's some discussion if Ball or Hillman will pan out, but at least Anderson last year had a really nice year at the end of the season. So I think they have a good offense going forward. I think Thomas fits it well.
Jon Heath joining the KMet Sports Show right now. And John, kind of taking a generic look, obviously training camp is looming. It's going to sneak up on us quicker than we can expect. The overall look at the team, obviously everyone's wondering if this is going to be the last year with Peyton and when Kubiak's going to start Osweiler, get this new era rolling. But this coming season, the generic, way too early look at everything, how do you think this season's going to pan out? What are some holes that you think still exist? What are some things that need to get fixed as training camp begins?
Well, the offensive line obviously has a whole lot of questions, so it'll be very interesting to see how they treat the offensive line and how they kind of patch it up a little bit, plays where guys will be moving around. So I think the biggest thing to be watching will be the offensive line going forward. Thomas, if he hadn't been there, obviously would have been the biggest story of camp, but now that they got him wrapped up, I think they're in pretty good shape going into camp. And as you mentioned with Kubiak, I think they'll be a very good running team this year, so I think they'll be able to pound out some good rushing yards this season. I think they'll be contending for another AFC West crown.
Well, AFC West crown, you say they might contend for. I'll ask you the question that is way too early to ask, and I probably shouldn't even come anywhere close to it, but I'm going to. In your mind, is this team, the way it's currently constructed, a Super Bowl contender?
Across the NFL.
Across the NFL? Yes.
Man, I really think that the Cardinals and the NFC are a big team to watch for because last year they had a great defense, a really good offense. They just couldn't get their quarterbacks to play well. Now that Carson Palmer is healthy again, with him coming back and getting back on that team, I think the Cardinals will be a big team to watch, at least on the NFC side of the ball. And on the AFC, obviously, Colts and Patriots, you can't count out teams like that. And potentially the Broncos, too. I think the Broncos will be right up there again.
Yeah, the Broncos. Do you think the Broncos specifically, are you comfortable in saying that they are, as currently constructed, Super Bowl contenders, the Broncos?
Yeah, I think they're a playoff team, and once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So, yeah, I think they are a Super Bowl contender.
Broncos writer from MileHighReport.com, Jon Heath, joining the show, giving us some insight on Demaryius Thomas' contract and looking ahead to training camp. Jon, thanks so much for joining us. We'll most certainly have you on again, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. That's Jon Heath, Broncos writer from MileHighReport.com, joining the KMet Sports Show to give us some insight. Let us know about Demaryius Thomas. I liked his answer when he was talking about Demaryius Thomas going to be a good fit for not just this era when it's coming to an end with Peyton, but also looking ahead for Osweiler as well. I kind of liked his take on that. Again, he's Broncos writer from MileHighReport.com. Check him out on Twitter at Jon Heath NFL. Jon Heath, thanks so much for joining the show. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dissect a little bit of what he had to say, being Jon Heath, and discuss ourselves our reaction to Demaryius Thomas and Dez Bryant's contracts. We'll be right back. KMet Sports Show. Stay with us.